Hello, my friends. The air conditioner was invented in 1902, actually, in 1901, but it was first installed in 1902. At that time, there were no cars. Nobody had cars except for a few experimental models. In the cities, there were mostly carriages, horses, donkeys, and so on. So, at a time when there were still no cars, people already felt the need to create an air conditioner, which shows that even back then it was hot in the summer. You can look in literature, you can look in history. For example, the story of British colonists when they went to the Indies, when they went to America and elsewhere. Well, when you look at their chronicles, sometimes we're in the 1600s, so that's well before the Industrial Revolution. You'll see that they already went through harsh winters and very hot summers. There's nothing new under the sun. What's new is that a certain number of people, literally like sorcerers, use natural phenomena to scare the population and demand money in return. Now, here I'd like to tell you why Europe is sacrificing its citizens, France in particular. In France, emergency medical services go to pick up people who are at death's door. Sometimes they pass away. We have hospitals where people who have just undergone major surgeries, they are, as we commonly say, completely wiped out. And what do? We let them stew in their own sweat in rooms that are like cars parked in the sun, so they are extremely hot. And then that's it. That's how it is. We can't do anything, even though solutions exist. As I just said, since 1902. So the first reason, let me give it to you right away. It's simple. The second one is a bit more complicated. I'll have to explain it. The first one is simply that Europe wants to make the whole planet feel guilty about the climate. They want to show, look, by using absurdity to prove that the climate is warming up. So they expose their citizens, especially the most vulnerable, to the heat, let them die, show the bodies and say, look, this is very serious. There is global warming. It's getting hotter. We have to do something. There's an emergency. We have to stop talking and take action. Well, I mean, take France. I'm sorry, they can't even handle street vendors under the Eiffel Tower. And even if I'm just saying this for the sake of peace, even if this whole story about global warming were true, it's not France that would have solved it, We have to be clear about that. It's not. It's not. A country riddled with corruption, riddled with bureaucracy, all that, that's going to manage the planet's climate. I'm just saying this so everyone is happy, because I know there are people watching me who say, no, all that is true. Well, listen, I'm meeting you halfway. It's true. Okay, it's true. All that. Yes, it's true. Now, I have the bad news, which is also the good news. The good news is it's true. The bad news is it's not your authorities who are going to fix it. I'm going to be direct with you. Even in North Korea, where the North Korean leader is literally a kind of deity, no one believes he has a button in his office to control the planet's climate. All right, so there you go. I'm just telling you like that. Now, if you want to pay, you pay. Okay, so if you want France wants to show the world, look how true it is. Look how much we are suffering. They want the world to feel guilty, believing they can make China and the United States feel guilty. Eventually, they think these countries will agree. We saw French people dying. It's unacceptable. We have to act now. We're going to ban cars for our population. We're going to ban heating, air conditioning. We're going to deindustrialize. We're going to destroy everything. We're going to break everything because it becomes necessary. It becomes urgent. The world doesn't care, okay? The world doesn't care. The United States invented this ideology. The United States invented it. Originally in the 60s and 70s, they talked about global cooling. Don't try to decode me. There is evidence. There are documents. There are plenty of them. Just in my astrology book, I cite a lot of them with dates and all that. It's not possible. And then they keep searching. Some debunkers claim they never said that, but it was documented, written, and discussed. They talked about global cooling. There were even newspapers, front pages talking about a major cooling trend, and later they talked about global warming. Afterwards, they made a little detour with the ozone layer, which was just a way for DuPont to get CFCs banned because they had a license. They were the biggest producer in the world, except that CFCs were kind of in the public domain. They had replacements, but they cost 10 times more. So it was absolutely necessary to eliminate CFCs, actually their own product, but one on which they were losing more and more money, okay, in order to be able to impose a more expensive product. So what was needed was what's called regulatory obsolescence, because a lot of people know about planned obsolescence, right? Okay, I sell you something and then, well, here it is. It's guaranteed for a year. And after 13 months, it's going to break down and you won't be able to repair it. That's technical obsolescence, but there's also regulatory obsolescence. Regulatory obsolescence is when a product that's not profitable is banned in order to push another product in its place. So, as I was saying, the Americans, they invented this ideology, and later on, someone else took it up, right? Embraced it. Well, they said, as I mentioned, cooling, warming. Then, since they couldn't really predict prophecy after prophecy, they said, well, let's just call it change. So it's change, you can't go wrong, it's clear. There. Well, it's going to change. How? I don't know, but things will change and you have to pay. So what happens is that Europe embraced this and it became a dogma. Whereas the Americans, when you look at it, really, they did absolutely nothing. In fact, ils ont juste fooled the world. And the most gullible were the Europeans. They embraced all of this. That's all, right? The Americans, they even ended up dropping it with Trump and all that. They said, well, for now, we've got other fish to fry. We want full employment. We want the economy. We want to boost stocks. We want to boost our company's income, all that. Drive the revolution. There's AI, build data centers. So your climate stories were sorry, goodbye. So what France is trying to do is make these countries feel guilty. All right, except they don't care. They don't care. People are watching from the outside. They don't understand what's happening. They say, why are these people dying? Why is Europe killing its citizens? What's going on? No one understands it. But you see, there's this desire to display suffering. The other reason I'm telling you is a technical one. Look, I've traveled to many, many countries, and when you go to France, you go to Austria, you go to Russia, you visit castles, palaces, sometimes sumptuous, extraordinary mansions, even those listed as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, all that. Well, you're going to read texts, you're going to hear guides talk. What are they going to tell you? So this was the winter residence of the Tsars. Okay, or you're going to go, I don't know, to a castle in France, and they'll tell you, so the King of France spent the winter at the Louvre Palace or the Tuileries Palace. The Tuileries Palace doesn't exist anymore. Today there's the garden, but not the palace itself. Afterwards, he would move when it started to get a bit warmer, when winter was ending and it started to get hot in Paris, you see. Paris was quite unsanitary during the heat because epidemics could break out. There was rain, storms, all that. So the king, as much as he enjoyed winter, he liked spending Christmas in Paris, but as soon as it started to get hot, he preferred to go farther away. He preferred to go to St. Cloud, Compiègne and all that. Then, at some point, they also had other castles that were used, for example, when it came to going hunting. There are seasons that are suitable for hunting, and at that time, they preferred to go to Rambouillet, they preferred to go to Fontainebleau, even to Marly at one time, an extremely exclusive castle that no longer exists today. That's the Château de Marly. You see, so when you were invited to Marly, it meant you were extremely close to the king, right? And actually, these were very big moves. It involved thousands and thousands of servants and people who had to remove the tapestries, the furniture, the mirrors, all of that, and then transport everything to another castle. But then up until now, when you visit, they talk to you about summer residences, winter residences, spring residences. But why? But why is that? Why change residences according to the seasons? And that's where it gets interesting. Look, when you look at the weather today, for example, I've spent the last 12 months in Mauritius. You see that in Mauritius in winter, right? The southern winter, roughly July and August, the temperature drops to about 20 degrees roughly. If it's 19 degrees early one morning at 6 a.m., I guarantee you that at the bakery, that's what people will be talking about. They'll say, yeah, it was cold, huh? 19. Summer means December, January. We're still in the southern hemisphere. And well, it goes up to what? 31, 32. Sometimes it peaks at 33. You see that the temperature difference isn't very big, right? Between the minimum you can see in the year and the maximum, you have roughly 13 or 14 degrees. So we build for, why? In Mauritius, we build for a tropical climate. Same thing if you look elsewhere. In Mauritius, there are still some changes because we're about 100 kilometers from the Tropic of Capricorn. But if you go to the Maldives, right? Maldives, the lowest temperature in the year is around 27 or 28 degrees, and the highest temperature is around 30 or 31. So there's a 4-degree difference, okay? So we know what to build for. It's the same in Saudi Arabia, the same in the Emirates, the same in many countries with relatively narrow temperature ranges. Okay, now we get to Europe. So if you look at Paris, I was checking earlier on AccuWeather before recording. I was looking at the temperature in January. There was one night at -7 degrees 2 days ago in Paris. It was 38 degrees. You have a 45-degree delta. That's specific to Europe. In Europe, look, the guy who lives, I don't know, on the ice floe, he builds an igloo. Okay, the guy who lives on the equator, he's going to build himself a hut, you see. But when you're in Paris, what do you build? When you're in Europe, what do you build? What do you build? When you have a delta that can go up to 45, even 50 degrees between the coldest temperature in winter and the highest temperature in summer of the same year, what do? Okay. So here, if we look, the former czars, kings, all of them, what did they do? They adapted by having several residences, several palaces. Well, there's one that's pleasant to live in during the winter because it's well heated with thick walls and all that. And another one, well, it's more pleasant during the spring because there are forests around, there are big windows, it's well ventilated, you see. That's the idea. That's it, it's done. Each residence was made for a season to be comfortable. So, of course, if we want to do as they do, each person, each European citizen would need to have 2 or 3 houses, each built according to the needs of a particular season. Maintenant, what happens if we look in France? There has been quite a bit of craziness, right? It's very deep, when you look at civilizations that have hundreds, even thousands of years of history, documented literally destroying themselves over a neurotic relationship with the climate, based on a narrative that it didn't even invent itself, on a narrative it picked up from the American underbelly, and even the inventors have abandoned it. So I was telling you, well, there was, if you remember, I think it was Sarkozy, the Grenelle for the climate, right? Who remembers that? The Grenelle for the climate. Well, the Grenelle for the environment. There you go. They started with the Grenelle, then there was Hollande. Well, he also pushed a certain number of regulations and stuff. Macron joins in, adds more, and you realize you never voted for that. It's always a partner, a path, an agenda that survives every majority, left or right. It doesn't change anything. The agenda always moves forward. Why? Because today, the people who come in, who run France, no matter their political color, are no longer representatives of the people or the nation, but are rather agents of globalism. That means a bunch of caves, like at the same time, lots of countries decide the same thing. The euthanasia law just passed in France was also quickly adopted in Canada, Australia, and many other countries. Same-sex marriage spread just as rapidly. The censorship of social networks under the pretext of protecting children and limiting access for minors and all that, same thing, it spread like wildfire. Sometimes there weren't even 2 or 3 days, sometimes just 24 hours, where countries announced they had done this. So literally, you see, you're no longer being governed from your own country. Today, you're in a situation where those who govern you are agents of globalism. They're agents of foreign interests. It's not happening in your own country. It's not happening at home. All that is over. It's finished. And today, let me tell you something. The real vote, whatever you tell me, you won't solve this through voting. The real question is between people who are what we call sovereigntists, who choose to represent the country, or people who are globalists, who choose to keep working for outside forces, that's all. It's as simple as that. But unfortunately, if you look at the candidates today who will be running, who will get the 500 signatures, and who will be in the presidential race, you'll see that everyone, no matter who it is, they're all agents of globalism. They're just people who will come in and impose on you what they picked up from Bilderberg, what they've been told at the WEF and all that. You see, that's the idea. So, like I was saying, madness after madness, we get Macron, he leaves, they come up with the concept of energy inefficient homes and all that. So the concept of energy inefficient homes, if you look at the Chateau de Versailles, technically speaking, it's an energy inefficient building. Technically, but it should be illegal to rent out or even build, all right? So what did they do? They optimized the homes, public buildings, hospitals, schools, all of that for just one season, which we call winter. Why? Because they developed this, let's say, psychotic relationship with heating. They said to themselves, we want to cut carbon because we are a civilization that believes in science. So science in the mouth of someone like Macron means vaccines and climate. That's all, right? It's not the rest, okay? Forget about the rest. If you look at the major scientific achievements and all that in France, forget it. It's happening elsewhere. But just to tell you, for them, that's what it is. So what's happening is that they said, we're going to optimize French housing for just one season, which is winter. That way we don't heat. We don't need to heat much because it allows us to cut carbon emissions. So we go with houses that in winter are facing due south, have small windows. The windows don't open because there shouldn't be any heat loss. The walls are super insulated, the old buildings. We're going to inject products. We're going to insulate, over insulate, all that. So what happens then? You get a good rating. In the winter, it's nice, except that thermal insulation. There's something in physics, it's well known. Thermal insulation works both ways. That means, sure, you can have insulation that prevents the heat generated inside from escaping, you see, but it will also work in the other direction. In winter, you might need to heat a little less. And in summer, what happens? Well, in summer, the heat that's inside doesn't get out. So the heat generated by humans, the human body generates heat. The lights, the computer that's running, the oven we turn on in the kitchen, all of that, all this heat that's generated, plus the sun beating down on the walls, which are hot, what's going to happen? Well, that heat isn't going to go away. So you'll end up in homes that are like heat traps. How do you deal with a heat trap? What's the idea? How does the planet do it? How do people do it? Well, they install what's called an air conditioner. But be careful, if you install an air conditioner, what will happen? Since we have authorities who are just obsessed with carbon, as I said. Well, those authorities say yes, but the carbon emissions we've cut by reducing heating in the winter, we'll lose it if we have to use air conditioning. You see the thing? That's why air conditioning is banned. Because otherwise, all the carbon savings we make in the winter, we lose them in the summer. That's it. That's how it is. Because we can't have multiple residences. Actually, we could have multiple residences. Because when you look at when a European buys something, when a French person, for example, is effectively taxed, when you look at employer contributions, so if you take from the employer, then he gets the gross salary, then you take more from him, then you look at VAT, all that, he's basically taxed at about 75%. Okay, so actually, when a French person buys a house, he could have bought four. Actually, he could have had four. So you work to buy four, but you only have one, right? And even then, so there you go. That's it. It's just that the situation today means that the French, the British, all of them are impoverished, literally impoverished by their government and are kept in discomfort. So, and then I'll give you a third one for the road, a third reason. It's look, you go to, I don't know, a fast food place or something, and what do they give you? They give you a paper straw and a plastic wrapper. The tray is plastic, the cup is plastic, everything is plastic, but the straw that goes in your mouth, that one is paper. Why? What's the point? It's to create a noticeable discomfort. It's to create a noticeable discomfort. You see, the part that really needs to be plastic, that's the one they make out of paper. That way, when you start drinking, it will melt in your mouth, making it hard to finish your drink and causing discomfort. That's the goal. You should know that these people work with psychologists. Psychologists specialized in behavior. And what do? They create little discomforts in your daily life. And banning air conditioning is a daily discomfort. It's one of the discomforts, you see. But well, the result is it also allows us to tell the French people, well, look, now we have to move forward. The climate, that's it. The climate is heating up. Look, we have to do something. We don't tell them that you can look at literature from 500 years ago. You'll find extraordinary heat waves, and you'll also find equally extraordinary winter colds. There were times when people crossed the Seine on foot in Paris. You see what I mean? But we forget that. We forget. We win, we win, we win. We reassure the memory of these little TikToks. We reassure the 15-minute memory, and we'll say, there you go. We're going to have to do something. And if we do something, well, you give up your freedoms, you give up your savings, you give up your job, you give up your comfort, and maybe even fundamentally, you give up your life in the end. Okay, so there you have it. That's it. It's awful. It's awful. Really, I assure you. Really, just look since 2008. In 2008, the American economy was about two-thirds the size of Europe's, making it smaller. Today, it has overtaken Europe's economy. Since then, roughly between 2008 and 2023, if you look at the World Bank figures, the growth in Europe, the growth of the European GDP was around, if I remember correctly, I'm saying 13 or 14%, check it, but it's around that, 13 or 14%, not much more. The United States, they have a growth of 87%. You see what I mean? They almost doubled. Yet the mess of 2008, right, the crisis they created, they're the ones who created it. But still, they're very clever. They're always, I'm not blaming them, you know, it's not an indirect criticism against the Americans. They simply create the narrative, they create economic circumstances and everything, and then they always know how to turn it to their advantage while Europe is playing to lose, that's all. The European countries play to lose, and it's pretty scary, that's all. Everyone is surprised actually, because nobody really hates Europeans, except themselves, except their states, except those who govern them actually. That's the idea. They're like, but what are they doing? What are they thinking? Are they crazy or what? That's the reality. That's it. Anyway, my friends, thank you for listening to this video up to this point. Check out my book, Astrology. It's available on Amazon in Kindle format, also in paperback, and also narrated by myself. I'm very proud to say, on Audible. I narrated it for Audible, so it's also available in audio version for those who prefer to listen to books while traveling, or on the train, or on the plane, or even before going to sleep. Me, what I often do is I listen to books pretty much all the time, you know. As soon as I have some free time, I listen to books, and I think Audible is a really interesting way to enjoy books because it lets you take downtime, so to speak, and fill it with something nice. That's it. Thank you anyway, my friends, for watching this video up to this point. I'll see you in the next one, but honestly, I want to say something positive, you know. Look, right now, I'm finishing the video. You see what I mean? Deep down, I'm telling myself, come on, damn it, say something positive. Don't let them leave like that. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Say something positive. I don't know. Yes, I'll tell you something positive next time, okay? That's... Right. That's how it is. That's how it is, really, you know. Just know that I regret all this, you know. I'm telling you about these things. It's not with a light heart, you know, really, you know. I wish that today we were talking about extraordinary things, you know, that we were talking about great achievements, big projects, maybe sending a man to the moon, right, for the first time, right, or building the Concorde 2.0, things like that, or digging other tunnels, maybe not under the channel, you see, but you get what I mean. Doing great things, you know, pushing society forward instead of being... For many people, you know, there are a lot of people, I'm sorry to say it, you know, I know it might not be you necessarily, but there are people who have a relationship with the climate. You get the feeling they live in the Amazon rainforest, you know, you get the feeling that right? There you go, the guy who lives naked in the forest, in the Amazon rainforest, who builds airplane totems and all that. Him, well, you get it, right? For him, that's normal. It's normal. He's someone who doesn't have access to modern knowledge and all that. He has his own way of life, of course, and all that. That's clear. But when you see people today who have access to everything we know and who tell you, yeah, the government needs to do something about the climate, yeah, you're still scared, right? It's scary, honestly. You know, between us, there are women in Switzerland. They filed... I'm serious about what I'm telling you. You can Google it. There are women. They filed a complaint against the Swiss Confederation, Switzerland, as we say. They filed a complaint against Switzerland, the elderly women, for the climate, because they said that Switzerland wasn't doing enough to cool down the Earth's climate or to stabilize the Earth's climate, and that they, as seniors, right, they are suffering. I'm telling you, some people are doing just fine, you know. Honestly, I would have liked to have their problems, really. I would have liked to have a peaceful life, you know, to have such a calm life in Switzerland. You see, to be like that, you're at the chateau, in front of the Chateau d'Uchy, right? You have a little bit of Saint-Sufferin and everything. And while watching the sun shine on the lake, it's clear that you say to yourself, I have no problems in my life, but I think the Confederation isn't doing enough for the climate. And then you say to yourself, yeah, girls, they're women, huh? We're going to start a procedure. and they won their case. Can you imagine? It's crazy. They won a case. I mean, the Confederation figured out, do something for the Earth's climate. Okay, that's how it is. That's how it is. We're living in crazy times. That's it. We're in crazy times. I'm telling you, between us, there's no salvation in the collective. I mean, salvation is about yourself. It's you, your family. I mean, when I say your family, I'm not even talking about your distant cousins. I'm talking about your girl. I'm talking about your kids. All that. That's it. The circle tight, tight, tight. That's where salvation is. Just take care of yourself, your whole family. And then, well, that's it. That's how it is. The rest, people, honestly, there's not much you can do. There's not much you can do, I assure you. That's how it is. I tried, I'm not speaking from a cynical point of view, because there are people who hear me for the first time and say, yeah, he's cynical. No, I'm not cynical at all, because I tried. The cynic hasn't even tried. I tried. I'm speaking from experience. That's all. That's it. Thank you, my friends, and we'll see you in the next video. See you very soon.